Nobody inside the arena noticed the change at first. The teams were warming up the way they always do, players stretching, shoes squeaking against the hardwood, coaches leaning close to their assistants and talking in quiet, measured voices near the bench. To anyone watching casually, it looked like just another international basketball game. But if you looked closely, really closely at the lineup board near the scorer's table, there was one detail that changed absolutely everything. For the first time that night, Caitlin Clark was in the starting lineup. The second the announcer said her name, the arena transformed. Fans leapt to their feet. Some people actually laughed not out of mockery, but out of pure, giddy disbelief because everyone in that building understood exactly what it meant. For weeks, the basketball world had been holding its breath, waiting for one question to be answered. What happens when Clark is finally handed the full controls from the opening tip? No limited minutes, no cautious rotations, just the green light, wide open. And now, that moment had finally arrived. Across the court, the New Zealand players pulled into a tight huddle. Their coach was talking fast, hands moving, pointing at spots on the floor, drilling the defensive game plan into his players. Stay glued to the shooters, apply pressure on the ball, force them into tough looks. On paper, it sounded like a perfectly reasonable strategy. There was just one problem. They had never faced anyone like Caitlin Clark in their lives, and they were about to find out exactly why the entire basketball world had been warning them about her. The referee stepped to center court. The ball went up, tip-off. The first possession looked almost too simple. Clark brought the ball up the floor, slowly, almost casually, like she was in no hurry at all. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't forcing anything. She was watching, reading, studying the defense like a chess player, sizing up the board. The moment she crossed half court, two defenders swarmed toward her, hovering close. They absolutely did not want her shooting. Clark smiled. One quick dribble, a sudden step to the side, and then she fired a pass across the court so sharp and so fast that the defense never even flinched in time. Corner three, swish. 3 points, 7 seconds into the game. The crowd absolutely lost it. New Zealand's coach was on his feet immediately, not angry, just genuinely concerned because that play had looked far, far too easy. The very next possession was even worse. Clark drifted near the logo, the ball in her hands, her defender hesitating for just a half second, barely a blink. That was all she needed. She pulled up from well beyond the arc, 30 feet from the basket. Nothing but net.
Team USA finally puts Caitlin Clark into the starting lineup. However, everything that glitters ain't gold. Remember last season we saw lineups with Ari McDonald at the 1, Kelsey Mitchell at the 2, Caitlin Clark at the 3. Yeah, Caitlin Clark was playing the 3. Caitlin Clark off ball, screening, relegated to a screener. Yeah, that's how the game started out. But if you held on long enough, if you held on long enough and waited till the fourth quarter, we finally got what we've been asking for, Caitlin Clark at the 1, Paige at the 2, Ray Burrell at the 3, Monique Billings, Kiki Iriafin rounding out that lineup, and the offense ran through Caitlin Clark. There is no if.
The sound inside the arena exploded again. Even players on the bench were doubled over laughing, not because it was funny, but because that shot hadn't even looked hard. She hadn't strained for it. She hadn't needed to. And now the entire floor had opened up. With defenders terrified to give her any space from the outside, Clark drove straight into the heart of the defense. 2 defenders collapsed toward her through traffic, exactly the wrong move. She saw it before they even committed, threading a pass through the chaos to a cutting teammate. Easy layup. Another assist. Another 2 points on the board. The scoreboard kept climbing. 10, 12, 16. Nothing New Zealand tried was working, and the more they adjusted, the worse it seemed to get. Guard the 3-point line and she'd drive. Pack the paint and she'd shoot. Double her and she'd find the open player before the double even fully formed. There was no clean answer, just a series of bad choices, each one punished immediately. And then, between possessions, Clark sat down on the bench, reached for her water bottle, and took a quiet sip. No celebration, no fist pumps, no words directed at anyone across the court. Just stillness, calm, almost bored stillness, while the crowd around her was still buzzing from the last bucket. That might have been the most unsettling part of all. Not the shot making, not the playmaking. It was the composure. She looked less like someone who had just taken over a game, and more like someone simply following a plan she had already mapped out in full, unhurried, unshaken, completely at ease. She looked like she already knew exactly what was coming next.
51 points and 25 assists. And today she had 14 points, 6 assists, and 2 steals. Leads all players through 4 games. The most points and the most assists. And the most efficient of them all as well. Like I was saying earlier, Caitlin Clark finally thrust into the starting lineup. Monique Billings, Caitlin Clark, Chelsea Gray, Dearica Hamby, Kelsey Plum. Kelsey Plum and Chelsea Gray with Caitlin Clark? Nah. Nah, that ain't it, coach. That ain't it, coach. We got to switch this up. Something needs to change here. Of course, people are finally excited about that. The universe is in alignment now. Cece is starting. Can we please put Paige in this group and take Gray off? Her pace is too slow. This is a terrible lineup. Why start 3 guards? Why start 3 guards? Absolutely. And it's been a rotating lineup. So why are we just sticking with Chelsea Gray in the starting lineup? I don't know. Politics, perhaps. CC hitting the bigs and another midi. Let's take a look right over here. Whoop. Caitlin Clark, nice pass to Monique Billings. Monique finishes at the hoop. And again, people continue to say Caitlin Clark has no mid-range game.
When play resumed, the Avalanche just kept coming. Clark had stopped playing basketball and started playing something closer to chess. She pulled defenders high toward half court, stretching the defense thin, widening every gap, and then, the moment she felt even a sliver of space, she attacked it. Another deep 3. Bang. The crowd was on its feet before the ball even hit the net. The defender turned and looked back at her coach with an expression that said everything without saying a word. How do we stop that? The honest answer was that you don't. You don't stop someone who can hurt you from literally anywhere on the floor. You manage, you survive, you hope, but you don't stop it. By halftime, the scoreboard already looked brutal. But here's the thing, the worst part for New Zealand hadn't even arrived yet. Because the third quarter became something else entirely. It stopped feeling like a basketball game and started feeling like a formal announcement, a takeover. Clark walked into another deep 3, no hesitation, no setup, just catch and fire from a distance that most players would never even consider. Swish. Pure. The kind of shot that makes entire arenas go quiet for half a second before they remember to react. Next possession, she sliced into the lane, drew 2 defenders, and at the very last moment, whipped a no-look pass to a teammate cutting hard under the rim. Layup. Assist number 5. Just like that.
And of course, even early on in the first quarter, Caitlin Clark pulling up from deep. Crosses half court. Rejects the screen from Monique Billings. Step back, pull up. Bang. Now, Caitlin Clark today from 3, 2 for 7 from 3. Missed a couple open opportunities. This could have been a 20-point game. Very easily, Caitlin Clark could have dropped 20. 6 for 11, 2 for 7 from 3, 14 points, 6 assists. Easily could have dropped 20. If she hits those 2 threes, stand out in particular. I think it was the first play of the game. She had a nice look at the 3-point shot. And then somewhere in the fourth quarter, she had another very solid look at a 3-pointer. Ended up missing them, but still 14-6. Solid stat line. Ryan Howard came alive after game 1 as well. 18 points for Ryan Howard. Paige Becker, 7 points for Paige. 3 for 8. 2 for 5 from 3. 1 for 3 from the 3-point line for Paige Beckers. Chelsea Gray, 5 points, 5 assists in 50 minutes. No Ka Copper today. I wonder if Ka Copper is working through an injury. Why didn't she play? I am curious as to why Ka Copper didn't play at all. Look at this here. We got Kelsey Plum skipping. This is what I wanted to show you, though. Of course, Kelsey Plum is going to pass back to, I believe that's Chelsea Gray over there. But look at Caitlin Clark on the top of your screen. And then look who I believe is either Kiki Irifin or Monique Billings.
And then she did something that made the entire arena gasp. Clark crossed half court. The defense stepped up to meet her, trying to cut off her options early. She hesitated just a split second, barely a pause, and then she launched a shot from nearly the logo. The ball floated up through the arena lights, climbing high, hanging in the air for what felt like forever. Silence. Then splash. Even the commentators started laughing, because at that point, what else could you do? It had crossed the line from impressive into something almost absurd. The New Zealand players looked exhausted, but not in the way you get exhausted from running. This was something deeper. Mental fatigue. The kind that sets in when every decision you make turns out to be the wrong one. When every adjustment you try has already been anticipated. Clark had predicted every move before they made it. She controlled the pace. She controlled the spacing. She controlled the entire rhythm of the game as though it were hers to conduct and theirs to simply endure. By the time she finally checked out, the damage was long done. She had played a relatively short stretch of minutes, but those minutes had cracked the game open completely and never let it close again. The scoreboard showed a lead that had grown from uncomfortable to insurmountable. Fans were still standing, still buzzing, still trying to put into words what they had just watched. Across the court, New Zealand's players sat in silence on their bench. Some stared at the floor. Some stared at the scoreboard. They had just experienced something that went beyond a talented player having a big night. They had experienced a player who could bend the entire structure of a game around her will, who could reshape tempo, space, and momentum simply by being on the floor. As the final buzzer sounded, one quiet realization spread through the arena like a slow wave. Tonight wasn't just a victory, it was a demonstration. A glimpse of something that the basketball world had been theorizing about for months. What happens when Caitlin Clark is fully unleashed, given the ball, the minutes, and the trust, with nothing held back? And if this is what one night looks like, imagine what comes next.